Okay, here we go. It's 7:02. This is a meeting of the trustees of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust of March 29th, 2021. We presently have all members present except Michael DeVasto. Um, This meeting is being conducted via Zoom video conferencing in accordance with the temporary suspension and enhancement to the open meeting law requirements by Governor Baker. Instructions for Zoom video conference, which include phone numbers and so forth, are on the agenda. The meeting may be recorded by the town. Actually, it is being recorded by the town. Anybody else desiring to record the meeting may do so only after notifying the chair and may not interfere with the conduct of the meeting in so doing. So that takes care of all of our administrivia. Announcements and public comment. I don't see any members of the public here. So I guess we can consider that one done. Item number 2 is basically status reports on housing activity since the last meeting. I've got a bunch of stuff, but it all relates to specific agenda items, so I'll talk about them as the agenda items come up. I don't know if anybody else has anything to that they would like to report.
I guess I'd just like to say that we're doing our buy down lottery on Wednesday at 5 o'clock outside Town Hall. And hoping, we expect we'll have to do a lot of publicity afterwards to scare up a house for these folks, but we'll do everything we can. And meanwhile, we had a really nice, Gary and I had a really nice check-in with our new assistant town administrator. She had a lot of questions about 95 Lawrence Road because Maria has basically kind of roped her in, paying her some consulting fees for paying attention to this. And she and her family are looking for a 3-bedroom home. So, here we go. We need to find 2 good homes.
Okay. Anyone else?
I would just add, Harry, that we received this week a request in the amount of $25,000. I believe it's anonymous.
No, it's from Catherine Stillman's estate.
But do we know that? Are we supposed to know that?
Yes.
Yes.
I
Okay.
think we are.
Okay. So we received that, and I hope that went into the new housing trust account. I haven't heard anything about a audit report yet, but imminent.
Yeah, just to comment on that, we had an agenda item for that. After the last meeting, I did contact, I spoke with both the treasurer and the town accountant, the treasurer to find out where the money should be sent to, and the town accountant to make sure that it would be treated as Affordable Housing Trust revenue. And I communicated with the attorney for the estate, and I got an email back from Miriam, I guess Gary got it too, that indicated that the funds had been received. It was a bequest from the estate of Catherine Stillman. And I think that there is a letter to follow, which may specify that it's for housing purposes. But so that's done. Yeah. Yeah.
So we have our first funds, huh?
Yeah. So we're semi-solvent. You can't buy much with $25,000 these days, but you know we got some funding, and I understand. I guess as long as we're skipping around on this agenda, you know, I understand that the audit is done, that they're awaiting only the management letter, and in an audit, the management letter typically will outline deficiencies and specify recommendations that should be taken. to make the financial system more robust. I don't know what the status of that letter is, but that's, as I understand it, that's the last piece of the audit. And once that's done, that would enable the accountant to start posting things, including the transfer from the old Affordable Housing Trust. So that's all I have on that. But anything else in the way of status reports before we move on? Okay. Next item, review of draft bylaw and declaration of trust. And so what I did was I took the comments from our last meeting, I put them into the bylaw and the declaration of trust. I sent them off to Katie Klein at KP Law. I got back a draft from her. There were a couple of small questions. Oh, here comes Mike.
Oh, good. I was just gonna text him.
What time is it? 7:08. And let's see, I think I can pop up the bylaw. But basically, she made all the changes we asked for. There were a couple little items. Volume. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to pop this up on my screen. And if we, I want to edit actually. If we clean it up, the only places that she had comments was she needed to confirm whether it's legal to require that just a majority of the trustees be residents of the town of Wellfleet. And the other little hiccup in here was this status of trust and board of trustees. This last sentence, I had raised an issue with that. And she replied to me in an email that that's intended to make clear that the trust can't pledge other assets of the town outside of the trust assets.
Okay.
So we can't pledge the full faith and credit of the town to secure a bond. We can only pledge the assets that we control, and I'm fine with that. So I'm basically, basically she's done what we asked her to do. And I think subject to leaving those two things in the wind, I think that this bylaw is ready to go. How do the rest of you feel?
Yes, so her objection to the majority of the board being from town was the having of people who aren't residents?
Yeah, she said well, here's the comment: need to confirm this is legal, and if legal, if it is advisable. And I guess,
To have non-residents,
yeah, to have non-residents. I mean,
right?
Do we think, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
I'm gonna say,
Kathleen.
do we think that was it, or is it the ambiguity of the majority? I mean, when you read it, that's how I took it, that she just was pushing back on the language, not on the idea of it.
Yeah, I had interpreted that as she was pushing back on the idea that non-residents could be appointed as trustees. And, the town appoints a lot of non-residents to positions. I mean, the chief of police is not a resident, and he's been appointed to an office by the Board of Selectmen. Marcus Springer was on the Energy Committee for years, and I don't believe he's a Wellfleet resident. And I guess my feeling is that if that's an issue, it won't pass muster with the Attorney General's office, and we'll have to fix it,
Yeah.
and that's it. So I'm prepared to, if the rest of you agree, to send a clean copy of this to the selectmen and say, we'd like it to be on the warrant for the annual town meeting.
Sounds good.
Agreed,
Good.
agreed.
Do you need a vote, Harry?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
I so move.
Okay,
Second.
And Jim seconds. Revised bylaw to BOS for ATM. Okay, any further discussion on this? Okay, the motion is to submit the Affordable Housing Trust bylaw to the selectmen for inclusion in the annual town meeting warrant. Roll call vote. Where's my camera again? Oh, come on. Excuse me. Why is this thing being weird? There we go. Okay. Sharon,
Aye,
Kathleen,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
and Michael. I think I can read lips.
Michael, you're muted.
Oh, I'm not muted. I don't know why it didn't come out. Can you hear
I
me
heard
We
now?
can
nothing.
hear you. We can hear you.
We
You
can
can
hear you
hear me?
now.
now we can.
Oh, it wasn't muted. I don't know. Maybe I just had no voice for a second. I talked to
Okay.
Helen for about an hour and 40 minutes today. So
Oh, that'll do it.
Okay.
that'll do it.
Okay, and the chair votes aye, so that's 7 in favor, none opposed. So that's the one piece. The second piece is the declaration of trust. See if I can find it. Yeah, here we go. Housing trust. I think this is it. The long and short of it is she did everything we asked her to do in this one. I'm see if I just don't have the right copy up here in front of folks. And let's see. Bylaw. Okay, I'm not finding it. I'm sorry. Oh. No. Ah, here we are. Okay, so we've got the language and support. We've got the language about moderate income households up to 100% of AMI. She got rid of, she didn't get rid of one member of the planning board and one member at large. I've got to fix that. And this sentence here, we had stricken that out. But I think
Secretary,
it-
what are you referring? You're not
Oh,
not
I'm-
screen sharing, so
Yes, thank you, Michael.
yeah,
Pilot error.
that's okay.
So here we go. And this Article 3rd, I don't know why she didn't remove the planning board member, resident at large, or a town administrator or a designee. I had thought she had agreed to that. She did raise a question about this one sentence, which was among the things we asked to strike out. And I told her that I thought that was a question of the baby going out with the bathwater, and it was okay to put that in. The one that says to the extent possible, the select board shall
Yeah.
appoint, yeah, okay.
To the
And I-
extent possible, I think covers you.
Yeah, yeah, it sets forth a policy goal rather than a mandate.
Mhm.
And I think that was, I mean, she changed, our references to, the bylaw. She struck out the stuff that we thought would basically hobble the trust. She did add the community CPA stuff. And what was the other? She got rid of the select board's approval on all transfers and all expenditures. So she did what we asked her to do, I think. So I think cleaned up, this is ready to go too, unless there are some additional concerns that.
Harry, did
Yes,
you have any kind of ruling about the AMI amount, the maximum?
we don't have any ruling about it, but it is in the declaration of trust here, right here.
120%, okay,
Yeah,
No,
and it also is in the bylaw.
okay,
So it's both places.
But
okay, that's fine. I thought you said 100%, that's why.
No, if I did, I misspoke and I apologize.
I
Okay,
heard
so are
that.
you leaving on here one member of the planning board?
No, I think that this stuff needs to go too.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think one member of the select board's got to go back in because the statute requires it.
that's required.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's required. in the statute, yep.
So I would propose to fix that and then treat this as good unless there's some more issues.
No, I think that's good.
Yep.
Michael, do you think this has to go in front of the select board before we ask for it to be included in the warrant?
Well, we are the ones who have to place it. So inevitably it will go before the select board. Since we're not presenting it like it's being brought by the trust, I think it would just be placed on the warrant and then a recommendation.
I basically would transmit it to the selectmen and say, this is the declaration of trust we're happy with and that we're prepared to sign, subject to your comments.
Right.
Because it's technically is, the trustees are the ones that draft and sign this document.
So
Yeah.
this would not go to town meeting, right?
No, I don't believe it needs to go to town meeting.
Oh, okay.
It's really only important for real property transactions.
So the first thing we did was going to the town meeting.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
Okay. So then, and then this is just our own bylaws.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, I got confused. I thought they were both.
Not a problem.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this would just go before us and we would just sort of accept it,
Okay.
I think. Not trying to speak for everyone, but
Yep. Well,
That's
is everybody okay with that? And if so, maybe a motion to that effect, and I can then take care of saying, here it is.
Yep.
I guess I move to accept the bylaws of the
No.
trust.
No, wait, this is, Michael, this is
let's-
actually a different document. This is
Yeah, let's get
essentially,
it.
I'm sorry, Harry, go ahead.
The Declaration of Trust, sorry.
Except DLTR.
Maybe somebody else should make the motion.
No, I think we just want to,
Okay, I move to accept the Declaration of Trust
yep.
as amended
Mhm.
and deliver it to the select board for approval.
Yeah,
Or,
Is that right?
I would say for
or
For
their,
review?
for their review.
review.
Okay,
I'll second.
Okay, so we got Mike, and then we've got Elaine. Further debate on this? Any? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see the Sue. So, who said aye?
Sharon.
Sharon, aye. Kathleen?
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Lane,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye, so that's 7 in favor, none opposed. Let's see. Status of transfer of Affordable Housing Trust account balances to trust and bequest to town for affordable housing. You may have joined after we talked about this, Mike, but we did straighten out with the attorney handling Catherine Stillman's estate, and those funds have been received. And I've had conversations with both the treasurer and the accountant about them being credited to this trust. You, Mike, are probably in a better position than I to speak about where we are on the audit.
I wish I was.
I only know what I heard
Apparently,
at the
the audit-
selectmen's meeting. Go ahead.
Apparently, and I don't know if this is public knowledge, but I think there's been a couple issues found in the audit and they're still trying to resolve them. I don't
Yeah.
know to the extent or if it should really have a material impact on moving anything from the accounts from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to the Affordable Housing Trust. I suspect that it shouldn't impact that. But I can't be sure. I mean, that would be
Okay.
sort of the treasurer and the town administrator to execute that. But there has been some issue with the audit.
Yep, not a complete surprise. Okay, so there really isn't any action we need to take on this. It's more of a report. Next item is Housing Action Plan. At the last meeting, we had just received the MHPA's MHP, Mass Housing Partnerships, email confirming the grant. They have now sent the grant letter to the town, and I believe they're expecting Maria to sign it. And there was a little bit of mix up between she and I as to whether I was supposed to sign it or she was supposed to sign it. But today, Mass Housing said that she is supposed to sign it, not me. And so we still have to resolve the issue of who is going to be on a scoping and scheduling committee. And I think that where we were was the last conversation I had with anybody was Elaine, Gary, someone from Mass Housing, from Local Housing Partnership, whose name is just
Susan
escaped me.
Spear.
Susan Spear. We can do one other person from the trust without running into quorum requirements. I'm happy to be that person. I'm also happy to cede that responsibility to anybody else who wants it.
I don't
then-
want that
I'm
response.
happy for you to do it, Harry.
Everybody's running for the hills. Is there anybody else on the Mass Housing, Local Housing Partnership we might want to add?
We had discussed two people. One has have family issues that
Yeah.
deferred, and the second is away.
Okay. Well, I think we can, we've got all three organizations covered with this. So if it's okay, we'll just identify those 4 people to MHP along with our person at the CDP and see if we can get that going.
Good.
Is it for
Uh,
technical assistance or is there also a monetary amount?
Well, I think that there is a small amount of money, but it is for technical assistance. I mean, I guess we would use that to help defray the cost of our staff support from CDP. Do we need to vote to actually accept the grant?
Couldn't hurt.
Couldn't hurt.
That might be a good thing to do, just as a, so if,
So moved.
Gary, second,
Second,
Sharon? Okay, any discussion on that?
Nope.
Okay, Sharon,
Aye.
Kathleen,
I,
Jim,
Aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
chair votes aye. And I don't think we need to take a vote on this, but is that makeup of the scoping and scheduling committee okay?
Yes.
So say it again. It's Gary, Elaine, Susan Spear,
And myself,
and you. Okay.
okay? Okay, now the fun stuff. Town meeting items. We already dealt with the Affordable Housing Trust bylaw, but Affordable Dwelling Unit Zoning bylaw.
Mhm.
I put this on the agenda in case we were in a position to either recommend a specific draft or make a recommendation on the concept of an ADU bylaw. Given the way my email's blown up today, I'm not sure we're ready to recommend a specific draft, but what do you think, Sharon?
I sure wish we were. I mean, I feel like we're, it's hard for me to figure out how we're ever gonna get to that point, because every time I create a draft and send it around, then I get more comments back, of course, which is what I'm I'm hoping for. But, and then the conversations about things we thought were resolved start all over again. So I would very much like to have the support of this committee as to the concept of it. And as to the specific draft, so if it's going to be taken forward as a petitioned article, in addition to being sent to the select board. So Michael, I don't know if you were in on any of those conversations. We were talking about doing both.
Well, yeah, I got the drift of that, but I was not involved in those conversations. But
Okay, so I
did
don't
hear
know.
that.
I don't know who would be taking it forward. Maybe Elaine as a petitioned article, but maybe not.
No, I don't think I
Oh,
could.
she can't.
No,
It would
no.
have to be a resident that's not
Okay,
an official or committee member, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Harry might know better about the
Yeah,
process.
let me just say, first of all, I think at some point you have to make sure that the perfect doesn't become the enemy of the good.
I have said that.
And
several
also
times.
recognize as a matter of process that this bylaw is undoubtedly going to end up in front of council, town council to be
Mhm.
reviewed. And the process for amending zoning bylaws has as a necessary component a public hearing by the planning board. So they're going to have some input into this. So if you're at a stage where you think you're tinkering with the details, maybe it's time to let it go and let the process, see where the process takes it. Because, we're here in August, still tinkering with details. We haven't accomplished anything. Second process comment is it doesn't matter as long as the selectmen are willing to put the proposal on the warrant. It doesn't matter whether it comes to them as a proposal from the local housing partnership or as a 10-citizen petition. Either way, their obligation is within 14 days to send it to the planning board for the planning board process and to put it on the warrant. So I wouldn't worry too much about trying to figure out how to do a 10-citizen petition if there's a level of comfort that the selectmen will, put this on the warrant in whatever shape it comes out of the planning board.
I'm fine with that as long, it wasn't necessarily my idea to do both, but
Mhm.
Michael, and maybe it's not fair to ask you, you feel like there's a sense that there might be support?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that the select board in all its past actions, this current select board has been very supportive in its language towards any type of housing initiatives. So without speaking for the board, but referring to our past votes and our past meetings, I think there's an appetite for housing initiatives. And as far as an ADU bylaw, I think that the board is would look at that in pretty, be open to it. But I would say that if you are planning on submitting something, so if it goes through the select board process and gets sent to the planning board, the planning board can make, I believe, alterations onto that document and then send it back to the select board to place on the warrant. If it's a petitioned article, that they could redraft it and put it in contention with the petitioned article, right? So they could submit, we have to put the petitioned article in unadulterated. Like it's however the petitioner submits it is how it gets to the floor. We can't alter it. We can't make any changes. We have to place it. The select board does not have to place a planning board article. I think it might be a little controversial if we didn't, but that's not, it's up to the select board what articles they place on the warrant. So if the select board was more comfortable with the petitioned article, it could theoretically say, well, we're more comfortable with the petitioned article, so we're going to place that one. Well, we have to place that one, but we're not going to place the planning board article. That could happen. If it goes through the select board and comes back from the planning board, I don't really know what our prerogative is there. So I don't know if it totally makes sense, but it might make sense to put forward the petitioned article in that if you are, the petitioners feel like there's something in there that they don't want to, negotiate on, or they don't feel that they feel strongly enough about, that petitioned article would still be on the warrant, but should the planning board come up with something that they find acceptable, that they could then withdraw their petitioned article on the floor and support the planning board article, if that happens. So it's kind of complicated, but
Yeah.
I think I've got the gist of that process. Harry, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and typically what happens is the selectmen put the one they prefer first on the warrant.
Yes.
And with the hope that that one will be acted on favorably, so the other one can be just disposed of without action. And a petition article can be amended. So once it gets to town meeting, the petitioners have lost control of it. So
Yes.
even if there's something, there may be something you don't want the selectmen to change, but anything in it is subject to change by the voters at town meeting.
Mhm.
That's exactly right.
So,
So
and
I
any-
don't know what the advice is.
My advice personally
Mhm.
about, and I'm not going to advise you to do anything,
No, I get that.
but my advice generally is if you have a petitioned article and you're not sure if you're going to be comfortable with what comes out of the planning board, that it doesn't hurt to have that petitioned article submitted, because you can always withdraw it. And so, if you don't submit it and either the select board decides not to place it, or the planning board decides that they're going to alter it in whatever way because it's come from the select board, and then we only place that, then your petitioned article doesn't exist. So the only thing that would exist on the floor would be an article. So for instance, if something fundamental that you really care about in that article were to be altered, then you would then be in the position to try and make a motion to amend that on town meeting floor to get back to where you were, which I think is a harder position to come to when you're trying to open up language rather than make it more restrictive. That's all.
Has anybody asked the Ethics Commission Attorney of the Day whether it's permissible to sign a petitioned article that relates to the subject matter of your official duties as a town official? Because it strikes me as odd that it would be prohibited.
I'm pretty sure that I was told that you can either do it one way or the other. You can't
Okay,
do both, but I take with advisement, you've said a number of times, if you ask the question right, and of course,
Yeah.
if you don't ask the question right, you don't necessarily get the true answer.
Mhm.
So,
Sharon, it seems like you should hedge your bet on this, I guess. If we bring it forward as an action of the housing partnership,
mhm.
that's fine, and it will go through the process with the planning board. At the same time, just bring it forward, and I guess you can't, but someone who isn't a committee member could bring it forward as a petition article. And
So, but
there'd
I'm
be
guessing,
a dual road that we would travel down, and at some point we would reconcile it.
so what I'm wondering though, is who would bring it forward as a petitioned article? Because all the people that really know anything about it are on other committees.
Someone can bring it forward as a petition article, but someone else could speak to it.
Is that so?
Yeah, any resident can put forward any language as a petitioned article. It doesn't matter where the language came from. Once you draw the papers, then no one can help you alter the language that's in an official capacity, as far as I know. And this goes back to my conversation with Joe Powers when I was trying to work with the planning board on some aquaculture, home occupation changes. So
Mhm.
I think that if you get, somebody presents a resident with some language and they decide, well, this is the language I want to put forward as a petition, nobody told me to do it, then they
Mhm.
have the right to do that, And really that provision is to protect the petitioner from undue influence from committee members or select board members or officials. Is the reason why that provision is in there, is basically so that there's not sort of this underhanded way of pushing someone a certain way when that's not where they want to be. So
Mhm.
I think that essentially that's the intent of the law,
But if you put it forward as a petitioned article, do you stand up in front of the select board and defend it or present it or?
And certainly present it to the select board if you want, or you could have, or anyone could say, I support this petitioned article.
And they don't have to explain it?
No.
They don't
they
have to
didn't,
explain why they support it, no, but somebody who knows zoning and is like, easily you could get a draft ADU bylaw from Stephanie Cox and just submit that as a citizen petition. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Even if you had no process in writing it or don't understand zoning at all, you could take that and petition it,
Yeah.
So they don't expect citizens to be experts on zoning. And oftentimes the processes are not fully fleshed out. So I think, and this is just, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to give legal advice, but I think that this document as it stands could be presented as a citizen petitioned article, should someone wish to do that.
Okay, does that sound right to you, Harry?
Yep. Yeah, I
What
mean, your right to petition your government is sort of a basic constitutional right in Massachusetts, which predates the US Constitution.
Right. Okay.
Do we know of any citizens who are interested at this point of partaking in this that potentially would be a good face for the petition?
Well, I don't think that that's necessarily something that we can sort of direct as a committee. You know what I mean? It would have to be somebody who is just willing to take it up.
I could probably come up with some people,
Yeah, there might be some people who are interested in doing it.
you know, I mean, and it's, would it be all right if it was my husband? I mean, there's
I
no
think
law
certainly
against it,
would.
right?
I
Yeah,
think,
let's not discuss it.
No,
yeah. The thing is that that's something that you'd probably have to call ethics on because you're married and I don't know if there's a conflict. I mean, probably
Okay.
not, but you know, so something like that. I think any individual situation like this is best just referred
Okay.
to
yeah, I'll
Uh,
get someone else.
hypothetical
I'll get someone.
in a meeting.
And
Yes,
unless,
yeah,
if
go
we
ahead,
don't
Ed.
call the Ethics Commission ourselves, should we find 10 unassociated people to sign it? Would that be
That would-
better?
That would be a good.
Well, I think
solution.
whoever's petitioning it is responsible for finding their signers.
Okay.
Can the signers be members of town committees?
I don't know that. That's gonna have to, somebody's gonna have to talk to the clerk.
The clerk or the AOD?
Well, both probably, but the town
Yeah.
clerk is supposed to have that information on hand also.
Okay. So the only, the main reason I wanted clarification on that, obviously because I needed clarification, but also because it's a different deadline. So it's, so the petition article has to be in by the 5th, you know, or sooner.
Yeah, so
and-
just speaking from experience, before I was on the select board, I was trying to work with the planning board. I was told, we might not get to it, or you might not like what we do. So if you want to put a submit a petitioned article, do it. When they saw the petitioned article, they didn't want it like that. In the end, they wrote their own article. And they submitted it, and that was placed before mine. That one passed, mine was, you know, basically withdrawn. So that's
It was-
fine, but I don't think the action would have been made had I not submitted the petitioned article.
Oh, I'm sure that's true.
It will
So-
force them to do something.
I mean, in the end, the planning board may say, hey, you know, we like this, this, and this, but we're not gonna do this, this, and this, and we're gonna send it back in our own petition. And it'll be up to the select board which one they want to place first.
Okay. Well, you know, I just can't get too worried about all that. I'm
No,
like,
no, no,
just wanna-
I mean, I think it's kind of hedging your bets, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
It's up to you. It's up to the people. It's up to whoever wants to submit a petitioned article. But it can always be withdrawn before it even gets to the floor. So if you come in on town meeting and you go, I'm comfortable, I'm just gonna withdraw this and see what happens, that's fine. But if
Okay.
nothing else happens, like if nothing goes through the channels, there will be nothing
right.
town meeting floor. Like if the select board just goes, look, we're not gonna take this up. We feel like there's not enough time for legal to look at it and this or that, and the planning board's not gonna meet, so I'm not saying this is gonna happen. I'm just saying hypothetically, then it doesn't get on the warrant, then there's nothing on the warrant.
Okay.
So that's the only reason why I say, you know, it's not like it's not worth doing, but we can move on. I think everybody
Yeah, I
grasps.
was
All
gonna
right,
say,
so
can I
I'll find
narrow-
somebody,
can I narrow the scope of the discussion on this a little bit?
Yeah,
please.
And I think that our role in this, given the stage at which the drafting is, and is to consider whether we want to take a position on the principle of affordable accessory dwellings allowable as a matter of right in all zoning districts. And I don't know if you want to embellish it beyond that, or whether that's a sufficient statement of support.
It wouldn't be by right in the seashore.
Yeah,
we could say, by right in all town, all jurisdictions controlled by the town?
I would say in all zoning districts except the Seashore District.
Okay. Yeah, and I like what you said before. Basically a support of the basic tenets of this ADU bylaw by right.
Yeah, because if we have to time another meeting in that little sliver of time between which the bylaw is in its final state and the deadline is, we're not going to make it.
Right.
So this is the best we can do.
Also, you could submit a recommendation later on to the select board that may not be printed in the warrant, but that could be either stood up or
Yeah.
said out loud at town meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, we can always stand up at town meeting and say that, the trust believes that this proposal advances our, our housing goals and deserves support.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's I think that's good for tonight and not just sort of vote to recommend the draft form as written right now,
Yeah.
but to vote to recommend the principles. I'm gonna defer to Harry to say it because.
So I'm going to suggest that we support the concept of affordable accessory dwellings as a matter of right in all zoning districts except Seashore District.
Not affordable, not the word
That's
affordable.
why I just said, accessory dwelling units. Did I use the wrong A there? Sorry.
An extra
Support the
A.
concept of accessory dwelling units as a matter of right in all zoning districts except the Seashore District. So somebody want to offer that as a motion or something similar?
So moved.
Okay, that's Mike,
Second.
and that's Kathleen.
Right.
Any further discussion on that?
Do we want to add in anything about where they may exist into that, or do we not want to go there? Detached buildings, separate dwelling units, principal use, accessory buildings.
Guess from the standpoint of the trust, creating and maintaining housing, anywhere they go is consistent with our purpose. So do we want to make it more complicated than that or not?
Probably not.
No.
Wherever possible, I guess.
Yeah.
Can we say wherever possible?
Okay, let's see. Concept of affordable dwelling units wherever possible as a matter of right in all zoning districts except Seashore District. That's what I have right now.
So moved.
Is moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
Nope.
Okay, let's vote. Sharon,
Aye.
Kathleen,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That's 7 in favor, none opposed. Okay, that takes care of that item. We're getting there. Allocation of short-term rental tax receipts to trust. Couple of things. First of all, it was a very long selectmen's meeting.
Mm.
It was 8:30 before we got to this agenda item, and we spent 45 minutes on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to open up another document for you, just to kind of provide a little more context while we talk. I did a little bit of research just to try and understand what was what. And what I found out was as follows. This has its roots back in the hotel motel rooms tax. And in 1986, that tax was extended to provide for a local option. And that local option required acceptance by the town. And Wellfleet did that in 1986 and set the town's tax rate for rooms tax at 4%. And there it stood, and we collected relatively modest amounts of money as rooms tax revenue. When the legislature finally got around to doing the short-term rentals tax, it turns out there are 5 different taxes built into this. But one of the things the legislation says is that if a town has previously accepted Section 3, wrong memo. I don't know what's going on. That's the one I want. So at any rate, when the legislature adopted the current legislation, they said a town that had previously accepted the old Section 3 on rooms tax is automatically accepted the new Section 3 on short-term rentals tax. So our vote to do this was back in 1986 at 4%. The tax under Section, there are the following taxes. Under Section 3, there's a 5% tax to the Commonwealth, which has crept up to 5.7% over the years. Section 3A, which is the local option tax, can be up to 6%. It's currently 4%. And the town can change it. Oh boy, there's a lot of typos in here.
Don't get distracted.
The town can change it no more than once a year, and it's by town meeting vote. And just by way of comparison, from just looking online, Wellfleet's is 4%, Truro is 4%, East Sam's is 4%, Orleans is 4%. The bookends, Brewster and Provincetown, are both 6%, I believe.
Eastham is talking about taking it up to 6%. That was
Yes.
just in the paper.
So those are the first 2 taxes. Section 3C is a 2.75% excise tax to fund the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund. I took a look at the board meeting minutes from the last Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund board. They anticipate approximately $15 million a year in terms of revenue into that fund. All the towns that are member towns can, participate in requests for funding from that. And then there are 2 more. One is called a community impact fee. It can be up to 3%. The town has to accept Section 3D and set the percent. The impact fee is charged only on short-term rentals of professionally managed units, which means units, more than 2 units managed by the same organization. So it's directly targeted at Airbnb, vacation rental by owner, all those guys.
And realtors as well, right?
Yeah, and if the town votes to impose that tax, no less than 35% of the community impact fee has to be for affordable housing or local infrastructure. And the town can set what percentage of that community impact fee goes for those 2 items. Note that it says affordable housing, and so it potentially excludes workforce housing in that 35% earmark. That doesn't mean that the other 65% couldn't be used for so-called, well, I'll just say workforce housing, just for shorthand. And then the very last piece of this is section 3DB. The community impact fee can be imposed also on owner occupied 2 and 3 unit B and Bs. And that's yet another vote by the town. So there are 5 taxes, 3 of which potentially affect the town. The most flexible one is the one that we presently have, the one under section 3A. So that's kind of the
Harry, I only see 4 taxes.
huh?
I only
Well,
see
there's
4.
3D section A and 3D section B. They're 2 different.
Are they different taxes?
Well, they're 2 different community. It's a community impact fee,
Oh, okay,
but it's imposed on 2 different cohorts.
okay. All right,
So that's just background. So we had the discussion in front of the select board. I think the comments were generally supportive. I did get the impression, and perhaps this was from Mr. Curley, that it would be helpful to have some sense of what we might do with the money as part of the request. And there was some pushback from the fire chief and from Kurt Felix about, well, there are other important uses for this fund too. Maybe you shouldn't act, the select board shouldn't act precipitously and commit all of this to the to housing. So that's where we are. And the question for discussion is, where should we go?
well, I have some ideas.
Okay.
One is that I'm not sure there's an appetite to bump up to 6% and then also at the same time convey the 3% community impact fee. Because you're talking about an increase of 5% on top of the already pretty high rates. Not that like in the future that can't be tapped, like this doesn't have to happen now. But I think we're pretty far off from actually implementing widespread expenditures on wastewater treatment for private septic systems. And listening to the last wastewater committee meeting, it seems that their sort of whole, or what they're sort of depending on these funds to cover, is to cover a subsidy for private septic systems to come up to nitrogen mitigation systems. And those systems are, if the systems that are in the works right now under testing are approved, which there's every reason to believe that they will, I think they're about 15% to 20% more than a traditional system. So they're not extremely expensive. So I think Kurt had mentioned something about $12,000 per system on average or something like that. And my contention with using this funding is I don't see a good rationale for using the short-term rental tax funds to subsidize septic upgrades for second homeowners who are using their houses as short-term rentals. In other words, they become the recipients of the tax revenue. And so I don't see how that's an equitable way to use this funding. They're operating basically businesses, and should the town be taking the impact fee, which the whole thing is an impact fee. We can call it what you want, but that 6% is going to the general to deal with the fact that, you know, we have so much rental going on, short-term rental going on. So in my idea, those with the highest property values and wastewater systems have typically been dealt with through property tax and infrastructure and grants, like, and not a short-term rental revenue. And so I think it's more suitable for this funding to actually offset what I would call the damage caused by short-term rentals, not to subsidize the properties that are the short-term rentals. And I think that's my position generally on this source of funding. And I do actually believe in a universal subsidy because I think it makes sense for there to be buy-in that everybody gets that, but that subsidy should be probably based on property taxes, with those having the highest property value paying the most, but also receiving the subsidy. It just seems to make sense to me from a fiscal point of view and how you utilize funds, like where money comes from and what it should be dedicated for. And so I think if in the future we're having a shortfall of our wastewater, it's a lot easier to go and say, hey, we have a wastewater project, we need some community impact fee, and raise that 3%. And it says, it doesn't say affordable housing, it says or infrastructure.
Correct.
So there's no reason why you couldn't raise that community impact fee in the future when these issues of wastewater come online, and say, we're going to dedicate this to wastewater infrastructure. But to me, it's kind of an anathema to be subsidizing short-term rental properties with septic upgrades with the money that is being collected to offset their short-term rentals. So I am steadfast in dedicating this stream of revenue to housing. And if we bump it up 6%, then that 80% is not 80% of 4%. Now it's 80% 6%, which still leaves probably more than 50% of what the 4% would have been, right?
Mhm.
So if we can just keep throwing numbers out there like that, everybody might get confused and no.
No, I
No,
think
but-
what you're saying makes perfect sense, Mike. And I also think the town needs to get serious. The problem is tremendous, and the solutions that are going to be available to us are very small, and we're going to run out of solutions. And one of the ways we can help with this problem is to have some money to either buy land or homes or help in the buy down world. And so I feel like the crisis is now, the opportunity and the money are there now, and that we need to just hold our ground on why it needs to go to housing.
And
Yeah.
I think the other issue is that this is unrestricted money,
Yes,
Mhm.
and that much of our issue is about community or workforce housing, and almost all of the other funds are capped.
Mhm.
So that's why this is such a critical source for this particular solution.
Mhm.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
I think the question is it a town meeting warrant item to dedicate it, which would, essentially harden the allocation? If we leave it to the select board to do it on a annual basis or a as needed basis, it's subject to more flexibility. And which is the best strategy going forward?
so
I guess
so-
from my perspective,
go ahead.
go ahead, Mike.
No, you go
I
ahead.
would say as a permanent strategy, I'd rather see a permanent
Yeah,
allocation.
I think so too,
Me
Harry.
too.
Harry,
Because-
I'm also questioning your reading of that one chapter that says professionally managed, because I
Yeah.
think the Airbnb, the average owner occupied is
Yeah.
quote unquote not professionally managed. And so I think it refers more to a B&B or units that are managed by a realtor.
It could be, and I was kind of not as interested in that impact
Yeah,
fee.
so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but
Yeah, anyway, because it was affordable housing or infrastructure. Well, 80% of 4% is 3.2%, first of all.
Yeah.
Um, And if you trot a number like that out, people will think you thought about it a great deal.
80%, 80% of 6% is,
Well, so what I was going to say is, what about we ask for something like the first 3.2% of the short-term rental tax income, and if somebody else has got a claim, then they should make a case that perhaps it needs to be, the rate needs to be changed to accommodate that.
okay, I see what you're saying. I was kind of hoping to get 80% of 6%.
Me too.
I think
Yeah.
so. I rather ask for the 80%, and if it floats up, it floats up, and
Right. I think
Okay,
nice about it, Harry. I don't really care about all the other issues getting some of the money. I think we need to really make our case for why it has to go for housing.
Well, I think it's important to remember also that there's going to be marijuana tax revenue. And I know a lot of people think there's not going to be much money coming in from that, but I can tell you that is a tourism market. And as much as people think that 3 dispensaries can't survive in Wellfleet, well, neither could three restaurants if we were basing it on our
Year-round.
year-round population. Or 3 retail stores, or 3 art galleries.
Or 3 liquor stores.
Yeah. So the thing is, in Colorado, they didn't realize how big the revenue stream was going to be. It was much, much bigger than they expected. And the thing is, people might be able to grow their own weed, but they can't grow the experience of going into a dispensary and being sold a product that is, what it is, and it's professionally handled, and there's an experience there, and I think that revenue is going to be something. I don't know how much it's going to be, but I think it's more substantial than people think it's going to be. So there's that revenue stream. We also have extremely high property values coming, and I don't know how that affects our assessment and our property tax base. So I kind of am of the feeling that, we're a town with one of the lowest property tax rates in the state of Massachusetts.
true.
We also have very little infrastructure generally, just water. We don't have trash pickup or any of that sort of thing. Private septic systems. But, I kind of believe that, public services and capital improvements are things that belong as part of your property tax base. And not all of it. There can be other tax monies and receipts. We have our beach fund and stuff like that. But this source of revenue, to me, is so, it comes from such a place that is so detrimental to a huge percentage of our community and the actual ability for us to maintain that community in the future. So what good are the capital improvements if no one lives here
Yep.
for most of the year? I mean, what good are the services we're providing in the schools we're spending money on if we don't have housing for people to utilize those services? So I just think things like infrastructure are best dealt with through property tax. We also have a residential property rate reduction. So it really, puts the onus, it's sort of like, it is offset a little bit. And this is an issue that we have to deal with, but like almost every municipality that's had wastewater treatment and wastewater issues has dealt with it through property taxes. So I don't see why it's impossible to look at that as a potential way to deal with it, especially with the rising property values.
I think we have to move from justification to action. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, oh, can I just get back to what I was gonna really say? Sorry to dominate so much time. I just feel like I'm giving speeches. It's just from being on the select board. Um, But I think that, you know, as far as tactically, as far as this meeting, I think it might be better to bring it to the select board for this year to see if the select board will allocate the funding this year, 80%. And then at the subsequent town meeting next year, to say like, look, this is what this has done, and this is the impact it's had, this is what we're going to be using the revenue stream for. We'd like to sort of codify this into like a steady source of revenue. I mean, that's my suggestion. I don't know how you guys think about that.
I worry if we do that, once it gets out there and more people know that the source is there and it's not nailed down, we could have more people coming after it. I feel like it's early on, and if we can make a good case at town meeting this year, that we should try to nail it down.
I think what Michael is saying, though, is the motion that we would bring for town meeting would be for FY '22. Because it's from June, essentially from July 1, that we're asking for the
So put
current
it on
year.
town meeting this year, but for
Put it-
next year's
it-
funds.
Exactly right.
what you're
And also for this year, we want the allocation for FY '21. So one is a select
Got it.
board action, and the second is a town meeting action.
I think in a way the select board would set a precedent for the money,
Mhm.
and
Right, they've already, we're just codifying what they've already voted, you know,
Mhm.
should be open and shut.
So I want to go back just, I mean, when we're talking strategically, I just want to, Ryan Curley is not wrong. I think that it would be useful for us to have some examples of how we would be using this money.
I have a great example.
okay.
It's
Yeah.
the next agenda item.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Yep,
All right, so can we make a motion, Harry?
sure. What would you like to move?
I think it's a two-prong, two different motions. The first is to request the select board allocate 80% of the current FY '21 short-term rental tax to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Okay,
second.
so that's Gary and then Mike.
Can I ask a question before we,
Yes. Yes,
is that the money we've already collected?
No,
Okay, it's the money, because,
Um,
so I've got the article that the Independent had about DOR releasing the numbers on short-term rental tax revenue.
Mhm.
And it says fiscal '21 quarter end, and it has Wellfleet September 30th and Wellfleet December 31st. And I know there was some question at the meeting, the select board meeting, as to where the money is from that, and has it already gone places? But maybe it's not accurate.
so I guess to clarify, the money that's already been collected has, I believe, been used in the general fund to offset COVID losses. It's basically, it was undedicated to anything. So I guess what I was suggesting is that to request that the select board approve this money, but then at town meeting, request that the taxpayers continue that. So this money coming, that we could earmark coming fiscal year, but also bring it to town meeting, that be a continuous revenue source going forward.
So to answer Kathleen's point, it may be that money it comes in quarterly. So quarters 1 and 2 have already been spent, but quarters 3 and 4 could still be allocated to housing. So essentially we would have a half a year at 80%, And then going forward, it would be.
Depending on how it's paid, these are likely the bigger, and I'm not exactly sure, does it happen when we get as a homeowner or as a rental owner, when the tax gets paid? Like right now, all my rental tenants are paying for coming. So some quarters have big money in them, some quarters don't. I would say that, it's hard to really tell. This was about $800,000 from these 2 quarters. And they seem to think that this quarter ending September 30th was a big quarter. So I'm not sure, is the tax paid when the people pay their bill or when they stay?
I don't know. That's beyond my pay grade.
Because I just don't, all the quarters aren't equal. One quarter here got 500, we got for the town, 554,000. And the next quarter we got 153,000. So.
So that's about $700,000, right?
Mhm.
And I would expect that there would be some more for the fourth quarter of the fiscal year, April, May, and June, but probably not much for January, February, March. But that money, I'm not sure how the town has paid the COVID-related expenses this year. They weren't a budget item in the budget that was adopted at town meeting, were they? I just don't remember.
No. I think we didn't have our receipts even then.
Yeah, is there special legislation that allows you to spend money for COVID?
No, I don't know how any of that happened. You have to talk to the chief of police. He's the one who kind of, there was some grant money.
Yeah,
We had to balance the budget. So things either got moved around and taken from one place or another to pay for things. And, I honestly, I'm not in there. I don't have my hands dirty on that. I don't know what's going on as far as like what paid for what and where the money came from and what's been reimbursed, because some of it was reimbursed. But I think there's been some balancing of the budget on that short-term rental tax. And so I don't think we should be going backwards, dipping backwards into anything.
yeah.
I think future, so basically what I guess I'm getting at is if the select board were to say that, like, what are we in fiscal year
We're in 2021 right now.
2021? Okay, so, and we've received the receipts in July and August for 2020. It starts July 1st, right? The fiscal year.
Correct.
So we received receipts for July and the first and second quarter.
Yep.
And now we're in the third quarter. So I guess we could request that the third and fourth quarter,
That was what the
go to the
motion was.
trust.
Mhm.
That would make sense because we're not really going backwards, and the town probably hasn't received the receipts from that yet.
No, they wouldn't have.
And
So
so,
the tax is paid to the Commonwealth and then sent to the town. It
yeah,
doesn't get directly by the landlord to the town.
yeah. And so then I think that we can do that as a select board if the select board chooses to do so. And then it could go on to the town meeting warrant as a continuation of that. Like the select board's pledged this, they could pledge it every year, but we'd like the taxpayers to,
So the only thing I'll say
we'd
about
like
that
the
is
residents to weigh in.
this article says that these 2 quarters are 90% of the revenue.
But
Makes sense.
These were first and second. So We just need to make sure we don't always just get third and fourth
No, in the meeting, it would be 80% of all,
the whole year. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know how to write the article or whatever, but
Gary does.
that's what I would propose, me as a individual on the select board and as an
Well,
individual in this.
right now, Gary's motion was about FY '21, current fiscal year, short-term rental receipts. So that's what
We're
we're
good.
working on right now.
Yeah,
So does it make sense? Are you suggesting that we should limit this to quarters 3 and 4, or try and reach back?
I was gonna say, Harry, we could make a motion to all funds unspent as well as future received.
Okay,
I'm not advocating, I'm just saying that that motion would then, because, these funds are fungible. They go from one heading to another. But I'm not sure how they're actually accounted for in our accounting department.
that's what I don't know either.
Yeah.
Mm.
well, normally I would expect that they would just show up as receipts received,
General
which would
receipts.
be
I think it's
eligible
general fund receipts. Yes, you're right, Harry.
receipts received, which would be eligible for appropriation in the following fiscal year. Towns also can appropriate from estimated receipts, which they sometimes do. So on something where you have a predictable income stream, shellfish license fees or something like that,
Yeah,
you can use estimated receipts as an appropriation source. So I don't know which the town has done with this. I'd be surprised if it was estimated receipts, because there really was no way to estimate what these were going to be
no,
back in September.
I don't think that it's that. I don't think with what's been going on with turnover from town hall that, and in our accounting department, that would have been.
Harry, we
Yes.
can pass the motion, the spirit of the motion, and
Mhm.
we can kind of authorize you to craft the language and the accounting for it that, maximizes the
Return.
return to the trust.
Harry, can I ask you a question real quick?
Yes.
So were you saying that like fiscal year 2021, which would have been last July to fiscal year 22,
June
That-
30th of this year.
June 30th of this year, so that money would not have been allocated. That should be appropriated to the next fiscal year?
That's the
General.
way I would expect that it would have happened, that these would just be sitting there as receipts received, subject to future appropriation.
Right,
I'm not sure.
yeah. And right now they're appropriating stuff to the 2022 budget.
That'll be in the budget we see at town meeting.
That'll be in the budget that we see at town meeting. So I just got my first eyes on that, so
Mhm.
I haven't had time to really look at it. Maybe the correct motion is just then fiscal year 2021 and see what happens and what town administrator weighs in on.
Well, there are two pieces to this. One is, do we make a request for any unappropriated FY 2021 short-term rental receipts? Yes or no? And then the second one is, do we want to ask for the FY 22 operating budget to include 80, the short-term rental receipts as a line item for the Affordable Housing Trust? And then another question is, do we want the town meeting to vote that this is a permanent allocation? So that's what I'm struggling with here. As far as the current fiscal year's receipts, it certainly doesn't, I don't think it causes any damage to pass a motion asking for them. The worst that can happen is, well, you don't understand the mechanisms for dealing with this money, and it's already been spent. There's nothing left to give you. Or we've got $700,000 sitting around that doesn't have a home. Here it is. I don't know how it works out, but we don't put the town in an impossible position by saying we'd like it.
Right.
And the answer might just be, well, it's impossible to do that. Sorry.
Yeah,
Might be the only way to find out what's really going on.
So what I think we have before us right now is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a motion to request that 80% of the FY '21 tax on short-term rentals that's currently not yet received and that's currently not yet allocated to some other purpose be allocated to the trust.
yep,
2 buckets. Received but not encumbered, number 1, and number 2, not yet received. Does that fairly state what you were talking about, Gary? If
Yes.
So do we want to talk about this piece and vote on this piece and then go on to the next piece?
yeah, I think that seems
Okay.
like a good idea.
Okay, so I'll just restate the motion is to request that of the FY '21 tax on short-term rentals, we request that 80% of amounts received and not yet encumbered and amounts not yet received be transferred to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Perfect.
So that's,
So moved.
that's what I think we're voting.
So moved.
Any,
Already
any
happened.
more discussion? I'm going to treat that as Gary's motion and Michael's second from 15 minutes ago. So ready to vote on that?
Yes.
Sharon,
Aye.
Kathleen,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Okay. Now, what about fiscal '22 and beyond?
So I guess my suggestion is to bring that to town meeting and ask for the select board's allocation of 80% of the short-term rental revenue going forward to be allocated to the trust.
Permanent.
Mhm.
Harry, I have the
Good.
same procedural question that Sharon did. So is this a request that we make to the select board for them to put on the warrant for consideration at town meeting? Or is it one that we bring directly to town meeting?
And we didn't answer the question last time. I'm not sure I know what the answer is
Yeah,
this
I don't know
time.
either. I'm just wondering what
Yeah.
what is our best strategy?
Mhm.
Both?
Well, as a select board member, personally, you know how I stand. I can't say that everybody else feels exactly the same way as I do. So just thinking outside the box about, what the trust, and I have to wear 2 hats here because I do think this is best for the town and best for the trust. So that's the way I'm approaching this. But that said, I think it might behoove the trust to create the article and submit it to the select board to place and recommend, rather than requesting that the select board do the work of making the request, of putting the article forward and actually sponsoring it. And that way, I guess it's it's a request from this trust, but I guess my inclination would be to think that the select board would probably support that request, just out based on previous meetings and discussions that the board's had about housing. I'm not, again, trying to put words in the select board's mouth. I know I keep repeating that, but I feel it's
But
important.
let me give you an analogy.
Go ahead, Dan.
The CPC approves grants of money for consideration at town meeting. We review those requests with the select board, but the select board does not have the ability to change or not put them on the warrant. Is the same thing true for other committees or for this trust?
I think that's baked into the Community Preservation Act.
Yeah, that's, I'm wondering, do we have any authority to do it?
I think the authority would come from a town meeting vote that says short-term rental tax receipts are allocated in this amount to this fund.
Right.
I would prefer not to do this by a petitioned article.
Yeah, I agree.
And the reason why is because I'd much rather, I think we have a much better chance of success if we can build some sort of a consensus to support this from within the town. You know, I don't want this to look like it's a my way or the highway request that, you know, we're making even though there's no policy support from within the town.
Yeah.
So I certainly am okay proposing a specific vote request to the selectmen that they place a specific article on the town meeting warrant
Okay.
and defend that. But I wouldn't want to petition it for just,
Right. I'm not talking about a petitioned article, Harry, but do we have any right or authority to bring an article to town meeting? I think the answer is, I don't think so.
no,
So we have to go through the select.
yeah, we are at the tender mercies of the select board.
Yeah, but that's to place or recommend, right? Like, can this committee submit an article to the select board or no?
Well, yeah, but it's just comes as a request and the select
Right.
board is free to, and I know this
Alter
is
it or-
an example from 40 years ago, but I was on a committee that did make a proposal to the select board for a warrant article and they said no.
Yeah.
And my father-in-law was one of the selectmen. So
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah, no, that's essentially what I meant, is that the article is coming out of here, but going to the select board rather than just requesting that the article be drafted by the select board.
Yep, no, I'm happy to draft something and I'm happy to react to editorial changes that don't
Yeah.
change the substance of it.
Yep.
And we'll see whether we get a recommendation. Does that all make sense at this point?
Yes, let's go for it.
Okay. Did anybody offer this as a motion?
No,
Not yet.
I don't think yet, no.
I kind of forget what it was.
Well, I think there's still a blank in this, was to ask to ask for a warrant article for a town meeting vote to allocate blank percentage of short-term rental tax receipts to the housing trust.
Permanent.
What's the blank for?
Well, is it for 80% or 100% or 2%?
Well, I would like 100%, but I don't think that's a realistic request.
I would like 100% too, but I think the fact that we've already started the conversation at 80% at the last select board meeting, we should continue along that path.
And I think that's more in line with the politics of the doable.
Mhm.
Okay, well, does somebody want to offer a motion with the 80% in the blank?
So moved.
That's Elaine.
And at the end of this, is it on an annual basis or something like that? Would it be, or is there some way?
No,
Sharon said
I would-
permanently.
going
Yeah.
forward.
going forward?
Yeah, going forward. I mean, there
Okay.
was one vote on the beach sticker money back in 1966,
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
and that's still the
Second.
law of the land. Second was Kathleen.
Mhm.
Okay, more debate? Okay, so what I have is to vote to propose a town meeting article to allocate 80% of all short-term rental tax receipts to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Second,
Sharon, I've got it moved and seconded.
Okay.
Sharon,
I,
Kathleen,
Aye.
Jim? Jim's muted, but that looked like an aye. That was an aye, Jim?
He's muted.
Aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Michael? 7 in favor, none opposed. Okay, my goodness here. This one's gonna be interesting too. Possible real estate purchase opportunity, and I think that what we're talking about is the property owned by Stephen C. Belcher on Old Kings Highway, or Old County Road, sorry, in
Right.
South Wellfleet.
So, I'm sorry. Do you want me to give you the background on this, Harry?
Yes, please.
So I received a call from someone, and they knew of someone who was interested in selling this property. The address is 30 Old County. It's map 30, lot 71, and it has an assessed value of $263 or $7,000.
Gary, I think it's 30 Old Kings Highway.
30 Old Kings Highway, it changes, the
Yeah.
name of the road changes there.
So the
Thank you.
assessor has it as 30 Old Kings.
Old Kings Highway, thank you. And I'm not advocating that it is 4.7 acres. It is a long, thin lot, somewhat hilly. And I'm not, in essence, I'm not particularly advocating the sale, the purchase of this property. But it did come before me, and the question is, do we want to pursue the purchase of this or any other property? Because I don't know what the comps are, Kathleen. That's one of my questions. Is,
Mhm.
what else is out there? I also have a concern about the title of the property, whether it's a quit claim, and he said, excuse me, I spoke to him, Harry, this week per our discussion,
Okay, yeah.
and he is interested in selling it. He said he had talked to Slade a few years ago about a title and a survey. Neither was done.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it wasn't done because the claim wasn't perfected or for whatever reason. So I think that's one of my big questions on this. And frankly, how much money is he interested in getting it for? And associated with this is I've heard a lot of discussion in town about shell fishermen not being able to find adequate homes and losing the ones that they are renting, especially those that have some grants, because of all the pressures on housing. And my grandiose vision of this is we buy a piece of land and we develop some type of home ownership or rental for shell fishermen and women. So that's my 20,000 foot on this, and I wonder, it's late now at 8:45. What's the best way to go forward at looking at this or any other property? And Kathleen, you put up a 0 there, so there's nothing else that's comparable?
So I think there's a couple of things. The fact that it's 4.4 acres,
Yeah.
there is not enough frontage for you to be able to subdivide it. But Elaine had said that at one point, Justin, I think it was Justin,
Right.
had told her that there was something that could likely be done there for us to get more houses in there than one. If we could get more than one house in there and he is willing to take anywhere near the assessed value, it's a deal. So-
Okay. I did just have a conversation with our new building inspector,
Mhm.
and they asked him to go out there, but I don't know if he's gone or have no report on that. But
Okay.
what was the bylaw that Justin talked about, Elaine?
It's the affordable residential design bylaw.
Yep,
Like a mini cluster development.
Mhm.
yep.
And didn't he say that we could put 4 or 5 houses?
Well,
Even more, I think.
I think he said
Mhm.
more, but, you know, I have a lot of his scribbles on a piece of paper. He kind of tried to do all the setbacks and showed a long, narrow piece that was like 24 feet wide going back that he felt could be developed under that bylaw.
Yeah, well, here's what I know about it at this point. According to the Assessor's Atlas, it's roughly 1,330 feet east to west and roughly 160 feet north to south, with that as the road frontage. That would suggest that if you took out the acreage you need for a subdivision road, you'd have about 160,000 square feet left, which is 16 bedrooms at 10 bedrooms per 10,000 square feet per bedroom, which is possibly well, it's three or four houses if you can arrange it. So there's that, and there's the affordable flexible residential design, section 6.6a in the zoning bylaw that might facilitate that. But I also poked around a little bit. I can't find a survey for the property. The title description, and I can pop up the Assessor's Atlas here if you like. Yeah, here we go.
Just for everyone's benefit, while Harry's doing that, the person who owns it is sickly. And so he's very much interested in a relatively quick process.
Gary,
Yeah.
did he indicate any idea of what he might be willing to accept?
No, I had a very straightforward conversation. What do you want? Make me an offer.
Yeah, so here's the Assessor's Atlas sheet, and the road frontage is actually on sheet 29. This is sheet 30. But you can see it's a long, narrow lot. I took a look at the deed, which is a very kind of at the description in the deed, and here it is. This description exists unchanged back to 1877 at least.
Wow.
And you can see just from reading it that it's a sort of 1877 style description. The things, but it's a very peculiar description. But basically, without dragging you through converting rods and links to feet and inches, about the most you can stretch this description in an east-west direction is about 856 feet. So there's a question there of whether it actually covers the property or not. And north-south, about the most you can stretch it is about 128 feet. So there is some question, and I would think at a very minimum, if we proceeded with this, we would want a survey to verify that the acreage at least approximates what's on the Assessor's Atlas.
So Harry, the interesting thing about that, I have it pulled up on Realty Insight with the boundaries.
Yep.
The frontage is 168 feet, but the side bounds, so the, I don't know when you're saying it, whether that would be north to south.
Yeah,
Anyway, the side bounds on one side is 1,336 feet. On the other side, there is 2 markers, and the parcel next to it splits as well. And one of those side measurements is 857 feet. And that kind of lines up with what you just said with the 856. And that would mean that the parcel doesn't go all the way to Old Kings Highway.
there's another deed. Yeah, so I without kind of wasting a lot of your time on this, there's no reference to a road on the eastern edge of this property, which is troubling. And the Old Kings Highway may very well be one of the oldest public roads in this country. It dates back to like the 1640s. So it would have been there. And so I took a look at the land under the power lines to see if I could get a clue there. And it's owned by the town. And it was taken from the heirs of James Townsend, who is somebody who does not appear in the deed history for this piece. So, there may very well be answers to all of this, but I think without a survey showing that there is, 4 acres plus here, and without a clear title, it becomes a much more speculative undertaking.
But typically, if somebody's buying a parcel of land, they don't do all that due diligence prior. They negotiate the deal, they get it under contract, and then they do the due diligence.
Correct.
So I think maybe we should talk about whether we think we need to be interested, before we worry about all of that. Would we pursue?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I just didn't want, I just wanted to let you know that this might be a bumpy ride. That's all.
Welcome to Wellfleet.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey, Harry,
yes,
this would be any purchase that the trust makes becomes property of the town of Wellfleet, yeah?
yep.
So would we not be able to do this in a friendly taking and clear its title?
I'm not sure, because it may very well be, if this deed doesn't cover the whole property, it may be an owner's unknown taking. And that's kind of a tough one, because you don't know who to know to perfect your claim. So I guess what I'm saying is, let's not worry about that, but just let's be conscious that if we do decide to proceed, we really need to have it be conditioned on the acreage being there.
Sure.
Because otherwise, we contract to buy this piece of land, and wherever it is where it is.
And the access.
And the access. Yeah, it's bounded on the east by the hollow, whatever that is. So
I think there's a couple of nice things about it. I mean, right now there are 7 parcels of land for sale in Wellfleet. 2 of them are on Howard Court, brand new subdivision with lots of rules. And so it really doesn't work for our shellfish community. They're listed for 239 and 279. And then it just goes up from there. I mean, it's 565, 779, 1,200. I mean, not even 1.2 million and 1.4 million. So I think it's worth our exploring if we thought we could get 4 affordable homes on a property like this to be expedient prior to the gentleman expiring.
Yep.
So is
I
this
agree.
something that now we would be able to go into executive session to discuss further? Is that,
I'd have to, we'd need an agenda item to do that. So if we were going to
not
discuss,
right now, not right now.
yeah, if we were going to discuss making an offer on this and negotiating strategy, we should do that in executive session. The other question I had was, we are gonna have to wait for funds to pay for this.
Well, our wait may be short, Harry, depending
Yeah.
upon when they transfer the
Correct.
trust.
And how much they transfer.
Exact, and how much of it is unrestricted.
Yes.
And what do we have to pay for this land? I mean,
Yeah.
does he need the money or is he trying to do us a good deed?
I think it's I think he'd like to make money for his family.
Oy.
So although he said housing, I think if I sold shoelaces, it would be okay with him if I had the right money. But I was going to say, I just took the call, so I may not be the right person to be in the discussion. So maybe it makes sense for Kathleen and Harry, or if you want, I will facilitate a conversation with them to really talk through what he wants and what's viable.
Mhm.
So I think it's a little bit of a slippery slope. And we should think about whether we want me to be part of the conversation or not, because I think if what he cares about is making money, if he goes to a realtor,
Right.
not going to be encouraged to work with the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust. So I think a more ignorant messenger
Hey, that's me.
might be better, only because if he finds out I work for Kinlan Grover and I know what's going on with land, I don't want to be disingenuous with the man, but he's not gonna, this is not the best use for him of getting the most money. This is, the best way for us to get houses on it.
I probably would be very upfront with him about that maybe we can't compete with somebody who, but just appeal, Elaine?
Well, I feel like we're about to launch this whole Housing Angels program, and we think that having to buy land is in our future. Possibly any piece of land we may be offered is going to come. It might not be the most straight ahead piece of lands. Could we use this opportunity to develop the protocols and go through them and see where we end up?
Does it make sense, since we're talking about negotiating strategy, to post a meeting to deal with this in executive session?
Yes.
This Thursday or Friday? I can't post it. Today is Monday. Tuesday, Thursday would be the earliest I could post it.
What does that mean, executive session? That it's private?
It's private, but it eventually will be public.
Yeah, it's private until the purpose for keeping it secret is over. So if you're negotiating for a purchase of land, typically, once you've bought it and paid for it, the need for secrecy is over and the minutes become public.
Technically, about half of what we've discussed right here would be suitable for executive session.
Yes.
Possibly, actually, anytime you talk about the value of property that you're intending to maybe purchase, you can go into executive session about that, because anything that puts the town in a detrimental negotiating position, basically.
So is there a time, Thursday or Friday, when we could do this? I know we've got, we've already spent 2 hours tonight.
Friday, Thursday, I'm getting vaccinated.
So lucky.
Good for you.
Yeah, agricultural workers.
Excellent.
Michael, the first one is nothing.
Yeah,
Is
No,
it
seriously.
4 o'clock?
I
I was just gonna say, isn't there a 4 o'clock housing meeting, Elaine? You told us.
There's a
Yes.
Housing, the partnership meeting
So
for.
I'd be all right on Friday. I don't have anything scheduled on Friday. It is Good Friday. I don't mind, but
I could only do it earlier on Friday,
How early is early?
9, 10.
It works for me.
10 o'clock on Friday? Is that okay with everybody?
yeah, that's
This
fine.
week It's fine.
10
That's
o'clock?
taking Friday off because of the vaccine. So I'll be around Friday
I
morning.
get my
said
shot
10
on Easter
o'clock?
Sunday.
Huh?
I get my second shot on Easter Sunday.
Wow.
I'm gonna be the only one
Yes.
unvaccinated on this
You have to wait.
crew.
Aren't you the one who has to go into houses with people?
Oh, but I don't seem to fit any of the criteria.
No.
Pretty soon it's gonna be open to everyone.
I know.
Okay, well, let's suspend on this discussion. I will post something for 10 o'clock Friday just to deal with this issue.
Okay.
Is there
Um,
anything that we can do meaningfully between now and then that would let us assess it better? Is that bylaw, does that bylaw give us the ability to put multiple homes there?
I can find out about that.
Possibly.
I can reach out and see what the criteria is. I've read that bylaw pretty extensively. And because it's a miniature cluster development, all the setbacks are reduced. It's not a standard subdevelopment. So you have reduced setback and green space. So you can make use of obscure space parcels with that bylaw.
You know, this would be the kind of place where Jerry Parent would be,
Exactly.
would really shine.
Yeah. No, he was instrumental in developing that. And I live in actually the only cluster development in Wellfleet. So I know a little bit about the rules of cluster developments as far as setbacks and green space and stuff like that and how that works. Like actually in this cluster development, there's 0 foot setback on your property line. So, so that kind of changes how you can orient stuff
Mhm.
inside the development.
I'd like to talk to some folks about quantifying the need for shell fishing homes. And I have some leads to do that, but is that something, Michael, that you are better? I mean, how many people really have lost their homes and are at risk that have grants?
I'm just not so sure. I mean, I know a lot of families right now that are in flux, and there's been countless issues with people who are wild harvesters. I think it gets difficult to draw distinctions between one class of you know, laborers and another, even though there is a residency requirement. But if you look at, you know, people who are actually fishing and people who are actually practicing aquaculture, those are two distinct things. They, but they both have the same residency requirements.
Right, but I'm sorry.
I don't know the extent when you get into the wild fishery and of the issue, but I think just widespread overall, anyone who's renting is always at risk of losing their house, and more so than ever, I think. And then the opportunity to find somewhere else to live, worse than ever. So right now, maybe 4 families I know that have children that are, you know, kind of trying to figure it out. When you're a grant holder, when you're a license holder, you can have hundreds of $1,000s invested out there, and if you it's not just losing a permit, you know. It's you know,
All right,
all that stuff. So.
I'll try to explore that a little bit more.
Yeah,
Harry, your name actually came up today with regard to the houses that were built on, was it Old Wharf or?
Old Wharf.
Did you do those, Harry? Did you have something to do with them?
On
No.
Old Wharf.
No, Judy Taylor was
Or
the one.
Oyster, yes, I talked to Judy, is the one who told me that. Or Oyster Lane?
Oh, the Oyster Lane houses, yeah.
Yeah,
That was Steve Durkee.
I know, but did you represent them, Harry?
I don't know whether you know, it's quite possible that I represented a lender and did a title search on that or something, but I don't recall being,
We're actively involved.
working actively on the permitting of that project.
And
Those-
do we as the trust have a limitation? Could we do a specialized housing, like housing for shell fishermen?
I don't know the answer to that either, because, even if we were to proceed without funding, state or federal funding that comes with requirements, there still may be some requirements on just public money in general and whether you can restrict it to residents only.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that-
fair
that's what I'm
housing.
Trying to figure out.
Yeah. Because the issue comes up in terms of, access to slips at the marina and all kinds of different ways.
Yeah.
So I don't know the answer to that. I suspect that it would be very difficult to say that this is a Wellfleet residents only. I don't know if it would work to say this is for holders of valid shellfish licenses only, because that's really the same statement. So I just don't know the answer to that. I suspect it's difficult, though.
I kind of have had this thought that maybe, and maybe it's far-fetched, it's just a brainstorm, but that if some entity like SPAT were to create a fund, then they could be marketing directly to shell fishermen because that's their mission.
Right, they could, that's what I'm trying to say. What role can we play?
Well, it might be, acquire the property and do the same thing that we did with the 95 Lawrence Road project in terms of finding a developer who will develop it subject to our use restrictions.
Right, but I don't think we could then sell it exclusively to shell fishermen.
I think that the Housing Assistance Corporation worked with Nantucket to do some housing that was just for teachers, town employees. They may know if you can do any piece of something like that, but
I think if it's unrestricted money, you can
Right.
dedicate it to
all private. funding.
residents or whatever. I don't know if you can sort of distinguish between classes of workers, maybe, but unrestricted funds, like the funds from the short-term rental tax, they're not open up necessarily to anyone in the state to apply for. But weren't those Oyster Lane houses built as just affordable houses to sell as affordable houses?
I talked to Judy today, Judy Taylor, who was the person most still involved with it, but she thought that the town owned the land, the town sold it to the individuals, and that they collectively hired a contractor to build 4 or 5 different homes, but for each individual.
Right.
And that's how they made it economically viable for the developer, but somehow that the town either sold or gave the land to the homeowners. And so it wouldn't be quote unquote deed restricted in any way. We'd be using public money and they could turn around and sell it for whatever they wanted. So
Of those restricted properties?
They're deed restricted.
no, that's what I'm trying to say is how could we both deed restrict it and sell it to
Yeah.
a vertical entity, a shell fisherman?
Well,
Well, I don't know that you could.
Well,
Yeah,
let me say this. Even if we can't use this property for that purpose,
Mhm.
we can still use it for housing in some form.
Right,
So it's something that if it makes financial sense to acquire it, we should acquire it. And, that may be aspirational. Maybe we can do that. Maybe we can't. But either way, we could still put housing on it for somebody,
Mhm.
even if our first choice doesn't work out.
right.
So that
Right.
shouldn't necessarily figure in the decision to buy it. That should figure in the
No.
decision of what to do with it.
Yeah.
Well, they're
which
linked,
is
but yeah,
Way down the road.
okay.
So I'll post another meeting on Friday morning for this. Do you want to stop now and postpone dealing with the the last meeting minutes until then, since it's after 9 o'clock, or do you want to do those minutes now?
Yes, please.
I'd like to eat dinner.
Yes, I have to eat dinner too. I wrote dinner.
Posted a TV dinner off of my wife, so I had to
That's
bake
what I-
brownies to cover myself.
Yeah. That's what I like about 7 o'clock meetings, though. That 2 hours feels like a long one, you know?
No.
It does. It does.
My goal is to get us organized enough and to get all of this stuff out of the way so that we don't have to have 2-hour meetings going forward. It's just in this sort of gestation period that there's some pain involved.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
Good.
let's skip the minutes. I'll put them on that Friday agenda because we can deal with them quickly. And how about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Sharon says adjourn. Okay, anybody second that?
Second.
Mike. Okay, roll call. Sharon,
Aye.
Kathleen,
Aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Yuri,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
chair votes aye. 7-0. We are adjourned at 9:08 PM.
Everybody stay well. And you know what, guys, we're really doing a lot. I'm very
are.
impressed with how much we're getting done.
And we'll
Thank you all.
See you,
Thank
friend.
you.
stop the recording. Good night, all.
Okay.
Aye.
Good night.